Ticats, thank you so very much for checking out the Sportsline Podcast on the CHCH and Parrot Media platforms. I'm Bubba O'Neill. Folks, we're talking football, and now that the Hamilton Tiger Cats rookie camp, training camp, and 2 preseason games are complete, and I've been released by the team, it's time to start talking about Ticats facing the real Bullets with the hopes of ending Hamilton's Grey Cup drought. That dates back to 1999. Well, the Tiger Cats' 2025 journey begins with a business trip in Calgary to meet those Stampeders. Calling every snap from his perch at old McMahon Stadium is Calgary native Mark Stephen, who has been living out his media dream since 1978. Folks, there are few in the CFL business who are as knowledgeable about the 3-down game and are as respected. So much so, he's already a Canadian Football Hall of Famer. Mark, thanks for joining us on the Sportsline Podcast.
Yeah, it's exciting to know the season is imminent, and away we go with the long journey, and see where it ends up. It's always fun, to watch and follow the different teams and see how it plays out. Obviously, the Stampeders, I understand it, and it's fair that don't have a lot of big plans or support or expectations for them, but let's just watch it play out here.
Before we get talking football, I got to throw this, and I know you're more Southern Alberta, but there's a team in Northern Alberta that's been making a lot of noise with Stanley Cup victory. I know it's the Edmonton, Calgary kind of thing, Toronto, Hamilton, a lot of rivalries going on over the years. But are Calgary fans, sports fans, cheering for the Edmonton Oilers?
Well, I'll flip that around and say they're not hostile to them. How does that sound? I think the Oilers have earned some attention, earned the respect of people, but I'm not going to go that far and say that people are, hanging on the edge of their seat, excited for what the Oilers are doing. But there's a healthy dose of respect. I mean, you don't get back to the Cup final 2 years in a row. And the other thing is, too, it's not like the Oilers edged the Stampeders or at least edged the Flames in a best-of-7 Western final or anything like that. Flames didn't make the playoffs. The Oilers did. They're the better team right now. So I think there's a grudging admiration for them.
Okay, fair enough. No more Oilers talk from your standpoint here. Hey, let me throw this out to you before we even get into the really deep football chat. I was looking back, and as we talked about off the top, you've been broadcasting the Stamps for a long time, but I got to ask you, how long?
1996, the first game, so 29 years. So, yeah, lots of time, and it wasn't part of any grand plan, but when you enjoy something, when you like it, when you have fun, why not? So here we are all those years later.
The even more impressive part is that you've been working alongside Greg Peterson for all these years. What's that been like?
Well, it's been amazing. He played in the league for a long time, but let's also look at a few things here. Greg, has a real job. He's a lawyer, so he does a lot of things, as far as his legal career is concerned. That's one. Two, he's also involved in the Greater Calgary Football Association, which is an agency and an entity that has a lot of, impact on football in Calgary and area. And that's because, they are sort of an umbrella group for everybody. So he works with them and has a bunch of other personal commitments. So it's really quite amazing, to tell you the truth.
There's been many wins and losses, and I'm sure maybe even great plays. Is there anything that really sticks out to you that when you think about your career and these 28, 29 years that you've been involved, that you really savor?
Well, I'd say this. When I was quite young, the Stampeders won the Grey Cup in 1971, and I thought that was one of the greatest moments in recorded history. And so I went down and watched the big celebration that they had at the old Stampede Corral, since demolished. And there's all these guys on the stage, and, they're getting the applause and the enthusiasm from the crowd and everything. And I said, wouldn't that be neat to be on that stage one day? And all these years later, I was, obviously not as a player, but as an MC, to sort of be there, and everybody's in the cities all rapt attention to the Stampeders. So those would be, I guess, the highlights, to, get on stage and be part of Grey Cup celebrations for whatever role I could play.
Let's take a look at what happened last year before we move forward to 2025. 5-12-1. No playoffs for the first time since 2004. I think that covers 18 seasons. Fair to say what happened last year was unacceptable?
Oh, Oh, totally. They do have fairly high standards here. Remember, it's just a couple of years ago they won 12 games, but they're clearly going backwards. I mean, their last 2 years, 11-24-1. That's not very good at all. It's barely 1 out of every 3 games that they're winning. And, there is a lot of heat on the organization, and for that matter, continues to be. I mean, until they prove they can get back at least in the playoffs and then start to move up the standings. So, yeah, it was a huge disappointment, unexpected, and, the organization took an awful lot of flack for it.
There is going to be change, and that happens with good teams even. Did you expect the head coach to be there and in the capacity that he is still there? I know that the defensive coordinator, obviously now in Hamilton and Monson, there's been a quarterback change. We can go on and on about some of this, but in terms of the coaching staff, are you surprised that it's all the head coach at least is intact?
Well, first of all, there were discussions about his fate, Dave Dickinson's fate, but once it was determined they're going to go forward with him, I wasn't surprised that there were huge changes to the staff. Look, you mentioned Brent Monson. He was a good coach the moment he walked into that meeting with Dave Dickinson. He was a good coach the moment he walked out of that. He just didn't have a job, with the Calgary Stampeders anymore. But they needed some change, just different ways and hearing different things and different approaches. And that's one thing that they did. Specifically to Dave Dickinson, I get it. Last year was not good, and we're not trying to excuse it in any way. But it was the first time he's missed the playoffs in 9 years. So I think he's earned the right to try and get it right and, get the team moving back up the standings. I mean, that'd be pretty harsh. One non-playoff year and you're gone. So I think he certainly deserved a second chance. And, it wasn't a guarantee he was going to get it, but I thought in the end he would get it, and he did.
So I'm with you on that, and I thought it was fair to bring back Dickinson. I mean, the guy has been a winner on the field and off the field. But sticking with off the field, what really did surprise me is there was a lot of chatter about the organization, the Stampeders as a whole, and of course, it all kind of got blown out to the public, at least with that CFLPA report that kind of put the Stamps in a negative light, kind of like they hadn't made the appropriate changes to today's modern athletes and the facilities and the food. Your thoughts on that? Because these were the opinions of the players.
Well, some of it's very fair. I mean, McMahon Stadium is an old stadium that really it's hard to make any renovations to, just based on the outline and the structure of it. There were some changes in the works even before that survey came out, so they were aware of some of the challenges that they've had. Like, they've got a totally different family room set up. They upgraded, and we're planning to upgrade anyway the weight room. But it's an old stadium. One of the big issues is, starts with the stadium itself. But I also think that some of those comments were born out of frustration. I wonder if the Stampeders were 12-5-1 if they would have had the same bunch of comments. But they got to be better. I'm not trying to excuse them, but certainly some changes needed. But they're dealing with an antiquated stadium.
Am I correct in saying there's a brand new turf in there for 2025?
Yes. That was one thing, a brand new turf. Yeah, that was really impressive to get that in. It was badly needed. The old one had a 10-year shelf life, and year 10 was reached, and so they put in the new turf. And that'll make a big difference. I mean, because the Stampeders both practice and play on the same field, so they're there every day. So it makes quite a difference, and I'm really glad to see that got done. It was needed as well.
Well, and it'll be fully worked in for next year's Grey Cup as well, too, that maybe Calgary will be playing and hosting.
Well, yes, there's a lot of teams, including Hamilton, 1972, that have won a Grey Cup at home. But the Stampeders are one of the few that haven't won a Grey Cup at home. In fact, they've never played in a Grey Cup at home. I know it's a ways away, but what the heck? You can always dream, and it'd be amazing to see a home Grey Cup win in Calgary. But, they got to get the organization turned around first before they can start to worry about that.
You talk about a turnaround, and of course, in the Canadian Football League, it generally starts at quarterback. And I thought the hottest free agent available, or a guy that was people were going to be taking a sniff at, or like, how can we work this guy in, was Vernon Adams Jr. Two-part question here. Was it time to turn away and move on from Jake Mayer? And do you believe Vernon Adams Jr. is the man?
Yes, on both counts. Jake Maier was a tremendous teammate, a very good guy, and he does have moments where he can put big games together, but not consistently enough, and the Stampeders weren't explosive enough. I think he'll slot in very well in Regina, to tell you the truth, and back up at Trevor Harris, because he certainly could win you some games, but when he's the every down quarterback, I think he's a little bit exposed. Vernon Adams, they sort of had to have him. He was the number one quarterback out there. The Stampeders had to go get him. I think he's certainly remotivated, reinvigorated, and I think he's going to do very well with the Stampeders hit the field against the Cats. He certainly gives them a different dimension. I mean, much as we still admire Bo Levi Mitchell, he wasn't really a scrambling running quarterback. The Stampeders haven't had one for a while, so Adams will provide a different dimension.
I think one of the things I always remember about Vernon Adams, and I remember he's a guy that lost his job, or at least his position as the third quarterback in Hamilton when the emergence of one Johnny Manziel came here, and he was released or traded to Montreal at the time. He's a great team guy. I'm sure you've picked that up already.
Yes, very much so. He's rallying the troops on field, and just seems to have that magnetism about him that people rally towards. He's certainly that kind of a guy that I think is going to, once he becomes more comfortable in the dressing room and more familiar, become an even bigger leader. But he is one right now. You just mentioned getting released by Hamilton. It reminds of what he told me is, after that, he realized his career was hanging by a thread. And he said getting hooked up with Trevor Harris in Montreal really saved his career because he learned a lot about game prep and just how to get ready for an opponent. And he really credits Trevor Harris with a lot of the success that he's had recently.
And I don't know if this was a personnel thing. There were criticisms about the Stampeders offense, not just last year, but even leading up a little bit, which was surprising to me because Dave Dickinson was, I would call him a bit of a gunslinger in his playing days, that it was a real run-heavy offense, that they just didn't pass a lot. I guess that playbook is going to be opened up a lot with as you talk about the mobility and the passing arm of Vernon Adams Jr. in 2025.
Well, two things, when you look through the record books, Calgary's really always been a run-first team, and that was the issue last year, that they, had some instability at the running back spot. As far as moving the ball downfield, that's one of the knocks against Jake Maier. You look at that category in the CFL stats, explosive plays of 30 or more yards passing. Stampeders were well down the list there, so they need to make it more explosive, and Vernon Adams will do just that. He has that amazing ability to extend plays and move the ball downfield. So combination of things, the ground game I think will be a little bit better. I hope it's a little more stable. That's the one thing they're hoping for, and they'll see where it goes.
I was stunned with listening to a media availability with Dave Dickinson, and he said, and I'm sure you were in the scrum there, he said this could be a whole new defense with a completely different set of personnel compared to last year. Generally, you see some additions. There's a couple of guys that you like from the previous years, but I can't remember a time where I've heard a head coach say all 12 players can be different.
Well, because they all could be. It's quite startling to watch it at the McMahon Stadium, an entirely new secondary. I mean, they shocked a lot of people when they released a couple of long-standing veterans, and Mike Rose and James Vaughters, who have since caught on, but they weren't very good against the run last year. They did make one move. They acquired Flo Ormalad from Toronto, actually returning to Calgary. Paid a heavy price, though. I mean, I thought Cam Judge was tremendous with the Stampeders. I mean, whatever issues the Stampeders had last year, I didn't have Cam Judge as one of them. So they made that big move, and they got aggressive in free agency, which is a departure from the normal way they have done business, and brought in Webb from Ottawa. So, yeah, it's very different. They brought in over 20 defensive backs and defensive linemen, and here's the result, a lot of change.
Hey, we hear the same thing. It's preseason. What does it mean? But I think when you're a team that don't make the postseason, and I'll say this with the Hamilton Tiger Cats as well, too. When you win in that preseason, I think it sets a tone. Do you agree with me on that?
Yes, I do, especially for this team that struggled so badly, just to get that winning sense. I mean, they had a bad season last year. I'm not trying to exclude it or anything, Let's not forget, at one time they were 4-4, and they ended up 5-12-1. So what I'm saying is, the second half they really spiraled and lost a lot of games, or had one tie thrown in there, and then won their last game. So yeah, I do think it matters. I think it puts the taste in the mouths of these guys. So I think it was important. They beat an Edmonton team, which I acknowledge sent a lot of number 2s and 3s and maybes and possiblies, but I think it was just good to celebrate a win. There was enthusiasm in the dressing room. The music was loud. In fact, they had to go in and turn it down. It was messing up all the post-game interviews. So that's a good sign.
Hey, I think TSN, the broadcaster of the Canadian Football League, they're licking their chops. They've been pumping out the promos. Bo Levi Mitchell, and I know it's his second return to Calgary, but there is certainly a lot of hype there. Before we talk about him as a Hamilton Tiger Cat, your thoughts, because I'd love your perspective on the decade-long stay or his time as a Calgary Stampeder quarterback.
Well, he certainly goes down as one of the greatest Stampeders ever. You add up his long list of achievements in terms of passing percentage, yards, touchdowns. He won 2 MVP awards. His winning percentage was off the charts. Was the only Calgary quarterback to ever lead the team to more than one Grey Cup. Did that in 14 and 18. He'll be warmly received when he comes back here. But no, he has a secure place as one of the greatest Stampeders ever. And there's an ongoing debate from time to time among fans who is the best quarterback in Stampeder history. They've had a lot of good ones, including Doug Flutie and Henry Burris. But for my money, you've got to put Bo Levi Mitchell at the top. That's the way I see him, and I think a lot of people see that as well.
Including last year's loss, 47-14-2 at McMahon Stadium. You're going to make a lot of friends in Calgary with that kind of record at home.
Yeah, very much so. That's why. And it seemed like the team was never out of a game when he was in there, and just had that innate ability. He has that confidence bordering on cockiness. I always say if you can back it up, it's not cockiness in the slightest. And, he wanted it. And here's the one thing, too, that he was, it's easy to be a big star, get in front of TV and all the big smiles, but he was tremendous, and I kept hearing this over and over, to people behind the scenes who don't have the profile, just do the stuff at the stadium, and he was very well regarded there, so I give him a lot of credit there.
In my short time with him, I got to tell you, one of the things I really appreciate about Bo is his accountability, his ability as a quarterback. And we hear this about quarterbacks all the time, and some are better than others. But to take the weight of the team, win or loss, on his shoulders, and he doesn't mind being that. And to me, that's a sign of a real good leader.
Totally. He wants it. He expects it. I mean, he's played in some big games, both in, Calgary and in Hamilton, but he won in college at Eastern Washington, and maybe the biggest achievement of all, the most difficult one, he won the 5A state title in Texas, and that's not an easy thing to do. So he's won everywhere he's gone, under every circumstance, and I'm not surprised. He showed it for a decade that he wants the pressure, expects the pressure, and relishes the pressure.
I thought the warm reception that he got from Calgary fans last year, seeing his wife Maddie, her in tears, obviously the relationships that she had built in Calgary along with the whole Mitchell family, seeing him come back to Calgary, it really was a highlight of last year. Now, the second time around, do you think the Calgary fans will be as warm to number 19?
Probably not as warm, but he'll get a warm reception again. Just as an added attraction, here's, I mentioned the Grey Cups. The Stampeders are celebrating their 80th anniversary, and they're bringing people in from their various Grey Cup teams. So it'd be ideal to have Bo on the field, but I guess he's otherwise occupied. So I think he'll be, kind of fired up as well when he sees people from the 14 and the 18 team. Alex Singleton is coming here, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So we'll see how it plays out. But no, Bo will get a nice reception again. Not quite the same, but he'll be well saluted.
Can you believe one win away, and this is on a CFL record, one win away from the fastest to 100 victories, and that'll be 141 games if he does beat the Stampeders if the Tiger Cats win on the weekend. I'm looking back at the record, and of course, who's number 2? Ron Lancaster, 149 wins starts. He could blow away the record. It's amazing to me.
Yep, and he's going to move it. I'm not surprised. We just look at his winning percentage here, and you look at the fact he'll move into the top 10, about 1,500 or so yards for being a top 10 passer in CFL history. So, no, I'm not surprised. He's written a lot of those records. I mean, the Stampeders were 15-2-1 one year, and they've had a lot of good records. So that chalks up the winning percentage pretty quickly when you're winning 15 out of 18 games. Not every year, but it certainly helps. No, I'm not surprised. He's a winner, and let's see how it plays out. I mean, obviously he's going to get the record eventually, and a few weeks from now move into the top 10.
Mark, your thoughts? Obviously, you've done lots of prep, leading up, and I'm sure there's all kinds of excitement because it is the home opener. From your perspective and your look at the Hamilton Tiger Cats and what you see, I mean, if you look back in the history books, I remember there was a time where we could never win in Calgary. I think it was like 15 in a row. It was awful, yeah. But and joyous for you, I'm sure. But your thought of the Hamilton Tiger Cats again from the Stampeders' perspective.
I'm sure everybody fondly remembers 2017, the 60-1 game. But anyway, we'll leave that memory down.
that was the end of Zach Caleros, believe it or not.
The end of a lot of things. But anyway, the Ticats this year, as I see it, first of all, I really like the way they finished the season, but obviously the rough start cost them. Bo Levi Mitchell and Scott Milanovich seem to be on the same page. I like the addition of Lawler, coming into an already quite talented receiving core. I think they've got a lot of good players there. And the receiving core, the line is really good. I'm a big Revenberg fan. I liked him all along, but it looks like a very stable group there. I'm not quite as sold defensively. I know they brought in some players, and they have some experience there, but the linebackers are good. The line, they've got some talent there. The secondary, a lot of former Stampeders there. Again, I don't know if there's a real superstar on defense, so I'm not quite as sold on their defense, but nonetheless, some experienced, talented players there. So they will certainly make their share of noise in the East, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, Julian Hauser's a guy there that really, when he left Hamilton, it was horrendous. It was such a horrible feeling. He had put together back-to-back seasons, and I don't think he was as good in Calgary. Hopefully he puts on the black and gold and he returns to the form that we saw a couple of years ago. Mark,
I agree. I mean, he was part of the defensive line issues, so there you go.
Hey, Mark, what you've done in this league is, like I said, Hall of Famer. So that enough said. It's been amazing to get to know you over the years and see what you do and listen to your call, that iconic call. It's just outstanding listening to the radio. All the very best in 2025. Maybe a Grey Cup, I don't know, meeting in Winnipeg. But at the very least, I look forward to seeing you when you make your trip down to Hamilton.
Yeah, we're there on the Thanksgiving weekend. And do remember, Ticat fans, the last time the Cats won the Grey Cup, who did they beat? The Calgary Stampeders on the last game of the 20th century. So there you go.
There you go. Mark Stephen, thanks for your time.
Okay, thank you. Always enjoy your trips to Hamilton, and we'll look forward to kicking off the season. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Right on. Take care, my friend. That's your Sportsline Podcast for the day. And if you just seen and heard, we love talking sports. If you do know of an athlete, team, or event to promote the Sportsline Podcast, do you want to hear from you? Please, you. Thumbs up, like, and subscribe button. Who wouldn't want Ticats talk, CFL talk? If you have something to say, we appreciate your comments. For the outstanding people that make the Sportsline Podcast possible, thank you so very much. And we'll see you tomorrow.